and welcome to this quick review of the Everlast Wet Palette 2 membrane. I say just the membrane because that's what I was sent. I haven't tried out the new case or anything like that, so I can't really give you any information about how well it closes or whatever else, whatever new changes have been made to it. I can only tell you about the new membrane, and I've had this for quite a while now. It's taken me a bit longer than it should have really to do the video, but I really wanted to test out to see how robust the paper is, because I did back the original Kickstarter for the Everlasting Wet Palette, and one of the ideas when they first made that Kickstarter was that they were going to do a reusable membrane, so that when you've finished with the paint, then you can wash it off and keep using the same piece of paper or whatever it is. So it saves you having to keep buying new pieces of paper all the time. But that didn't come through for the first Kickstarter, so it's something that they've obviously worked on, and then they've sent me the new membrane to test out to see how much better it is. I did find on the first Kickstarter, the paper for it, you couldn't really use it that many times. It worked great, but the paper definitely wore out very quickly, and if you tried to clean it off, you probably were going to tear it or stick your paintbrush through it. You can see here on the video, I'm just using the same piece of paper every time throughout the video. So every time you see it goes under the sink, in the sink rather, under the tap, and I'm washing the paint off, it's always the same piece of paper. I've been using this for actually I think over a month now, and just keep washing it off every time. It's actually been quite interesting as well, because we've started getting some hot weather in the UK, which means that the wet palette dries out a little bit quicker. And sometimes if I don't close it or whatever, if I get distracted and wander off and then come back and it's kind of started to dry out, and so the paint is kind of, especially like around the ring, you get like a dried ring around the paint blobs. They can be a little bit more stubborn to clean off. I think it's important to note as well that I'm using a big kind of soft brush for cleaning off the paint. I did, when I first tried it, try and use my fingers, but it wasn't super successful. So if you are going to use something like this, then it probably is a good idea to use like a big soft brush. Don't use anything too stiff, because although like the paper is quite robust, you could still damage it. It's still paper at the end of the day. If you look on the videos as I'm cleaning them off, you can see, so it cleans off really, really well, but you do get very minor stains on some of the colours. I haven't tried anything like inks on the paper yet, because I just haven't had to. In the things I've been painting, I've not needed any ink. My suspicion is that ink will stain it quite heavily, but the paints that I mainly use are Vallejo and Games Workshop, and from that it's just very minor staining. And as I said, I just keep using the same paper over and over again, and I'm still using the same piece at the moment. So they sent me a couple of packs of the paper, and I've only used the one sheet. You can see in the video here, I put the paper over the plug hole. Don't do that when you're cleaning it off. It just blocks the sink. Other things that I could say about it. So there's one really big improvement on the paper that I love so much, and that is, compared to the previous paper anyway, and that is, on the previous paper, once you wet it and then you kind of smoothed it onto the wet palette, it would get creases on as it kind of like settled, and it doesn't matter how hard you tried. Like, you could use things like credit card to smooth it out, and I would get like a fairly smooth finish, but regardless of how well you did it, you'd still get little creases that appeared all over it. Here you can see in this photo, so this is a dried piece after I've used it. You can see still the odd little paint stain, but as you can see, it's really, really flat. It's just so nice to work with the paint on it, because you don't have to fight these creases. If you've ever used or made your own as well, because for a long time I made my own wet palettes, and to be fair, they work pretty well, but I eventually just got tired of having to cut my own piece of paper out every time. It was just way more convenient to have a ready-made shapes and things, and everything just worked well. So there's nothing wrong with using a ready-made wet palette, but with the creases and things, it was just always a case of like you'll get paint kind of, could hit the crease. Sometimes the crease would be, it'd raise out a bit, so the paint would dry on those parts, or the paint would just run along the crease and touch other colours, things like that. It just made life a little bit more difficult. So having the really smooth paper, I find, is such a big game changer. If anything, for me, having the perfectly smooth finish on the paper is more important than just being able to clean it off, because I'm a professional painter. I get a lot of materials and things for my painting anyway, so being able to swap out paper or just quickly pick up a new piece and put it on the wet palette, that wouldn't bother me. It doesn't, I'm not that bothered about being able to use the same piece over and over again. I'm just saying that it works really well for what it does, but the fact that the paper is really smooth, and also another difference is that the paper is white compared to the previous paper, which was much more like baking paper or parchment paper, which meant that it was kind of grey. Now, I mean, that's not too big of an issue, but it just means that now when I put the colours on with the white background, they're really clean and clear. But yeah, I mean, that's about it really. As I said, I can't say much about the rest of the wet palette. I know in the previous one, people sometimes complained about the magnets not sticking in so well onto the cases. I never found that as an issue, because I didn't like to stick the little well palettes that come with it on there anyway. Like the magnets were not useful for me at all. But just in general, there may have been a few issues that people weren't so keen on. I can't say whether those have been improved or not, but I can tell you that as I said, that the paper, it seems a vast improvement to me, and I will be using it from now on. But so anyway, that's the end of the review. The Kickstarter is live at the moment if you're interested, and I'll put a link at the bottom if you want to check it out. But thank you very much for watching.